a Satoshi Kon fan. You know, I love Perfect Blue, I love Paranoia Agent, I love Tokyo Godfathers. But for some reason, I just never watched Millennium Actress in full. So I was very excited when Sophie told me that they were going to play this as a Fathom event, at a big, at like a big on a huge screen. And I thought this was going to be the best way to see this movie. And I think initially when I came out, I had a lot of nitpicks. I didn't really like how the movie basically just stated everything, like, oh, it's the pursuit that counts, like all that bullshit. I didn't really get into it, even though I really appreciated the visual storytelling and whatnot. The editing in this movie is incredible. Like, it's some of the best editing you'll ever see. But then I really thought about it, and I thought, you know what? This, the symbolism of a person's pursuit towards art and creating or whatever, that doesn't necessarily need to be subtle. It can be very direct. And the way the film presents itself, it's such a visually incredible film that it's kind of hard to complain about the fact that the movie's being too preachy or whatever, because I don't think the focus of the movie is on the preachiness of the film. It really is focused on, basically intriguing you with the visuals. So I decided that my criticism was a bit mute, maybe just a bit too nitpicky, and I realized that overall, it's a really good movie, and I really did enjoy it. It made me realize that I probably just want to see It made me want to watch more anime movies again. Like, I missed that. I missed that feeling, man. So I'm not sure if there's more to say. Yeah, I just like it. There are a lot of like Japanese movie references where I'm just like, oh my god, that's from Throne of Blood. I know that because I'm smart and all that bullshit. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. I'm not sure. Like, here's the thing with some of these movies on this list. It's been a while since I've seen them, so I'm not sure if I have much to say about any of these. But yeah, this movie's good.
One last chance. Pray that he's still out there. Somewhere. Mad Max 2.
Alright, home stretch, top 25, and here's Mad Max The Road Warrior, part of the trilogy screening that I saw. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm not the biggest fan of 80s action movies. I know a lot of people are. I do like The Terminator, I like Predator. I cannot get into Die Hard. I thought RoboCop was kind of stupid. Whether it's about the Reagan era or whatever, I just don't care. I just thought it was dumb. But, with that said, The Road Warrior is pretty good. I'm sure a lot of people think that it's like a masterpiece or whatever, because I've heard people saying that. Everybody in the theater, like, when the first Mad Max ended, everybody was just going, The Road Warrior, fuck yeah! And when The Road Warrior started, everybody was like, it's happening! Everybody was there for The Road Warrior. And The Road Warrior is an extremely simple movie. The structure is very simple and tight, and it does everything. It conveys the character of Max very well. The action set pieces are really good. The subtle, very homosexual, like the gay undertones and the subtle undertones that's clearly like implying other things here and there are very fun to watch. Some of them being a bit too campy for my taste maybe, but still. Like the guy with the fucking hockey mask going, you cannot do it. All that's very fun, just visually and all. And I'm not saying that it doesn't really have a problem. I guess the main thing is that it satisfied me up to this point, and then it just didn't really go beyond that. I had fun. Like, it's clearly a flawless movie, but it's not the greatest movie just because of that. Yeah, the action set pieces are fun. It's just a fun movie. Like, the more I think about it, it's just a fun movie. With also, I'll say this, it's also a really ballsy movie. Like, they just kill off certain characters that you'd think would survive. And I think that adds to this sense of unexpectedness that the movie has. Um, but yeah, overall, great film, fun film. I'm sure everybody's already seen it. I'm probably late to the train. But what else can I say? I just love how it starts. It starts off like this, the Road Warrior, this mysterious person. I'm not even sure if this is an Australian accent, but and then it just ends with the movie going, and the Road Warrior, we never saw him again. Like, I love that. It's so melodramatic, but I love it. Yeah, fun movie, man. Finally got to see it. This is another movie where the more I thought about it, the more I really liked it. Because Billy Wilder always had like some political subtext to his films. But he was never this overtly political. And of course he's political. He came, considering where he came from originally. But it was very interesting to see what his type of political movies were like. And the great thing about this movie is that it's not preachy. It gives you just enough of, like really good, like old school comedy mixed with like a really modern sense of humor that his movies always had. That makes it all much more digestible. Like, there's this amazing scene where the rich daughter, she dates she dates a communist. Yeah, she dates a communist, and they're both like doing this sign, and the girl and obviously the communist boyfriend like told her all this stuff, all this political stuff, and she just says in a southern accent, she just says, "Africa back for the Africans," and it's just the best. Oh, it's so good. It like this taking this really innocent, well, not innocent, but like innocent in the way that she has a southern accent or whatever, that warm American type of image, shove her into a political country and just make the political aspect of that country and the entire setting manifest in her, and eventually she just goes, "I don't really care about politics, man. I just want to go back to my dad." And I don't know, something about that whole story structure is very good. There are some bits of the movie where it's clearly making fun of certain nationalities, and I'm just like, this is a bit too lowbrow compared to what the rest of the movie is doing. The rest of the movie is so subtle and impactful. This is more lowbrow. And I'll stick with that, quite honestly. But the rest of the movie's really good. It's really funny. It's edgy in the right way. It's edgy in a very smart. It's edgy because it's smart. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And they're the thing with good comedies, and when you talk about them, you just want to like quote stuff. You just want to quote scenes, and I think that's what my brain is trying to do. I'm just like remembering scenes and how they work. All these running jokes, making fun of Nazism, making fun of corporate America. It's so good. And within all that is James Cagney, who fucking kills it. I think this might be my first James Cagney movie, and I want to see more. He's really good. He's great. His facial expressions, his fucking frustration. When he's angry, it's the best thing. But what's so great about about the scenes where he's angry is that he's not just like being pissed off and just like stomping the ground or whatever. No, he's like actually trying to solve the situation, and his struggle makes it much more funnier. So, yeah, it's a pretty good. It's a fucking Billy Wilder movie. Just expect the best. So, yeah, that's my review, I guess. Well, here's another Billy Wilder movie. Definitely considered as one of his best. Probably might be considered his best overall. And this was the first movie that I saw from the Barbara Stanwyck double feature. And I think I could have loved this movie more. If not for the fact that it is an extremely predictable movie. And here's the thing, it's only predictable because this is basically the film that set the blueprint for film noirs of the next few years from that point. Like, this clearly set all the cliches, all the shots, all the storylines that most film noirs basically just took and ran with. This is one of the great originators, and the problem with originators in hindsight is that you see all the movies that take that formula and actually do something like really interesting, like twist it around. You see all those movies, and then you see where it all came from. You're like, it's not as exciting, and it's kind of your fault. It's not the movie's fault. So, but hey, the movie's still really good. Like I said, Barbara Stanwyck, great. Fred McMurray. Not the biggest fan of his acting. I think sometimes he can be a little bit robotic, but here his stone-colded acting actually works because his character is very interesting. I'm not sure why he's doing the things he's doing in this movie. Is it because of lust? Is it because of just this weird, like, anti-social, anarchistic element that's within him? Like, it's a very psychologically interesting film for that particular character. And Edward G. Robinson in this movie is he's the best part of this movie. There is a scene where he's like doing this huge monologue, and it's perfect. It's one of the best scenes in movie history. And when the monologue ended, it was so good that the audience actually applauded in the middle of the film, and no one was annoyed. No one was going, "Shut the fuck up!" No, we were all applauding. We were just like, "That was incredible. I want to see that again." The only person who's like doing a bad performance is this one guy who's like clearly trying to do this generic like old school Hollywood accent, but he can't control his volume, so he's just like, "Hey, see?" And he's breaking his voice, and it's like kind of like watching Lemon Grab from Adventure Time act in a 40s movie. So it was pretty bad, but the rest of the film, it's fucking great. The way it unravels itself, the mystery behind it. Yes, I've seen this before, but seeing where it all came from is still really exciting to watch. So yeah, it's great. It's pretty good. There's a reason why people say it's great. Who knew? The next two movies that I'll be talking about are the ones where they really surprised me out of nowhere. These are the most underrated films I've seen throughout this trip. Or maybe just a few ones after this. Gunman's Walk is... It starts off so innocently. It's just these two brothers competing in a field, like randomly. They don't even present you the story like 5 minutes into the film, and then the plot kind of starts. The first 5 minutes is just these two brothers going, "Hey, I can probably do this better than you," and you're just sitting there thinking, "Oh my god, is this one gonna be one of those really cheesy, boring westerns?" And then the plot starts, and then you realize this is one of the most ahead of its time movies that you'll ever see. It's almost like deconstructing the Western genre, because the Western genre, when you think about it, it's very masculine heavy, mostly white masculinity, let's face it, because, John Wayne or whatever. And it doesn't really care about other nationalities or ethnicities. It sort of exists in its own realm. They exist in their own sense of justice. And there's a reason, and that romanticism sort of is its own charm in a way. That's why so many Westerns are great in that aspect. But then you see a lot of them, and you realize, I kind of want this to have a little bit of a twist to it. And then you watch this movie, and it's like deconstructing masculinity. It's deconstructing like racism in Western films. And it ends on this really poetic and tragic note that like progresses one of the characters so far ahead that you're just like sitting there in awe. Like, you could not believe what the movie's doing. And I'm not gonna spoil anything, and I don't know, like, this movie was really surprising. This is like one of the best westerns that I've ever seen. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and say that. It's one of the best westerns that I've ever seen. And I think in a few years, if I, like, watch this again, and, like, in retrospect, I think I'm gonna love this movie more, because it just does so many things I've never seen a western do before. So, yeah, if you've never seen it, please watch it. Like, please watch it. Please. Like, don't let the first 5 minutes fool you. It's so... Tab Hunter in this movie... My God. And the other guy, the guy who plays the father, who was all... Who, like, both of them were also when they came to Cordura. That was, like, the double screening. Tab Hunter and the guy who plays the father, they're both so good when they're on screen, and when they're, like, really dueling out dialogue. It's some of the best things you'll ever see in movies, man. It's so good. Wow, yeah, it's one of the best westerns that I've ever seen. I'll just go ahead and say that. You should really watch it. Really, it's so good. I think it might be a bit hard to find, but if you can watch it, please do.
Tony, please, you're hurting me. You're through, I'll see to that.
Well, fine with me.
You get this stuff killed or I'll... You do it.
I had never heard of this movie before. I had no idea what I was going into. At first I thought, okay, it's a movie about acting. It's a movie about aging in the entertainment industry. And then it just turns into this Hitchcockian thriller that, you know, sort of analyzes about perversion and obsessiveness, and how it all could really just turn you into this cruel, terrible person. It's also like a deconstruction of Shakespeare plays, and some of the lighting in this movie are so gothic and effective, and it all works because the main actor, who I cannot remember the name of right now, it's all because of him. Everything that he does, every single bit of wide-eyed maliciousness that he portrays in this movie, it just makes everything seem much darker, much more gothic, much more effective, much more just trauma-inducing. It's such a good drama, and I was just surprised when I realized I've never seen this movie before. It's like right up my alley when it comes to like really dark character studies, and I mean, I'm not even sure what more I could say. It's this incredible film about all of the things I just said. So yeah, go and see it. Like, I don't know what... I wish I made some, like, more specific notes when I saw these films, but man, it's really good. You guys should totally see it. It's incredible to watch.
In this town, that can all change like that.
Hey! You're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.
Alright, here's the top 20, and yeah, number 20 is going to be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've already made a review. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I made a fucking review for this goddamn movie. I'm not going to talk about it again. It's number 20. Just so you know, okay? It's number 20. God damn it.
Oh.
Judex is one of the most interesting films I've seen when it comes to how they portray... I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's a lot about this movie that I want to say. I love the antagonist, who sort of is this mix of like a James Bond villain, but also sort of this fairy tale witch type of character. And her dialogue is just incredible to listen to. I love how the supporting characters are much more interesting than the main characters. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but there is a point where the movie sort of becomes like more of like a child's story. It turns into a fairy tale, and it's hard to explain. Like, there's like some random characters that come out of nowhere, some random imagery that come out of nowhere, and you just accept it because that's the kind of atmosphere that the film sort of brings onto you. It's a magical experience. I have no idea how to explain this movie, man. It's fucking great. It's interesting. And I again, this is probably the one where I'm like, I wish I wrote something down for this, because all I remember is that I had an amazing time watching it. Um, yeah, I don't think I have more to say. I'm sorry. I wish I could. It's been a while since I've seen some of these movies, man. I watch a lot of films, so I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say that it's a great movie. Just go and watch it. Just know that it's like in the top 20 from all these films that I've seen. Okay? Cool? Cool. You know, I've always heard about Qui-Gon, and I always knew that the film existed, but then I hear about how it's like 3 hours long, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure if I'm in the mood today. But then I found out that they were doing like a 35 millimeter copy screening in New York, and I thought, okay, this is my chance. This is my chance to see this movie and really take it all in. And I'm gonna say it. There are 4 stories in this movie. I don't like the first story. I think the first story is just okay. I like the ending. I like how gothic and like really sort of this it's definitely like a folksy East Asian horror story that you tell to your kids when they're really young type of atmosphere, and I enjoy that. But I much more enjoyed. I enjoyed the other 3 stories much more, and what else? Like, some of the imagery is like really trippy. Like, not only is like the second story with like the eyes in the sky. That's an incredible image. And then you have that story about the ghosts wanting to hear music again, and then you see all these boats. You see that war scene at sea. It's so colorful, and it's so I don't know, it's just so interesting to watch. And then you have these incredible... I love how these stories work, because usually at the end of each story, there's that one thing that the character does not do. Maybe they forget to keep a secret. They forget to color in the eyes, the ears, or whatever. Like, those small things turn the ending into a much more horrifying, conclusion. I love those kind of storytelling, because it's very traditional, it's very classic, and you sort of miss that in this age where everything needs to be clever. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Like, the more I think about it, I'm just sitting here thinking, it's just a lot of fun. It reminds me a lot of the horror stories that I grew up listening to and heard about. So I think that aspect definitely added to my enjoyment of the film. But yeah, overall, Qui-Gon is clearly... There's a reason why people call it a classic, and you should probably watch it. It's pretty good.
It's brand spanking new almost. Such a pretty dress.
I got to see an early screening of In Fabric in Los Angeles on the last day of my trip. And I am still trying to digest that movie, because it is one of the most batshit crazy movies I've ever seen. It is hilarious. It is anger-inducing when it comes to certain characters. I have no idea how to think about that film. It's just... it's so much. It's so much. It reminds me of, like, this book that Sophie lended to me. It's called The Story of an Eye. It's really perverse, but it's hilarious in its perversion. It's weirdly sexual, and there are moments where it's horrifying, but more so because of how unsettled you are of the rest of the movie. And I it doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't know what the director was trying to do. All I know is that everybody should see it. It is just insane. It's an insane movie, man. If you've seen the trailer for this film, that's like 10% of the movie. There's so much more going on. And I don't know. I'm not sure if I need to think more about this movie still. Like, it's whew. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I had blast. I had such a fun time. So yeah, please watch it if you can. If when it comes out, wherever you are, it's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing to just witness. My fucking God.
This way, then something good will happen. Everything just glows.
Here's to the greatest job in the world.
Bringing Out the Dead was, again, one of the more surprising movies I saw in the theaters while I was traveling, because I'm really tired right now. My brain is starting to like malfunction at this point, but Bringing Out the Dead was surprising because my expectations were not that high. I saw this film after watching another movie that I'll be talking about later with Sophie, and I just kind of sneaked in for the midnight screening at the IFC Center. And I always heard about this movie being like one of the lesser but underrated Martin Scorsese movies, and I just thought, okay, let's see what's going to happen. It's got Nicolas Cage in it, how bad could it be? And it is an incredible film to watch. Like, visually, it's so modern and punk rock that it's kind of, it also, like, in a bad way, it does sort of look like an oversaturated late 90s music video. Something that The Prodigy would have made, maybe. It does actually kind of look a lot like Smack My Bitch Up. But on a good note, it's nothing like that I've ever seen before in the feature-length movie. It looks like none of the other Scorsese films. And it's much more similar to After Hours Scorsese than, Goodfellas Scorsese. So it's got a lot of like really interesting imagery, a lot of really trippy subplots. It's got a lot of character study for Nicolas Cage. It's also like an amazing portrayal of New York when it was still like a bit troublesome here and there. And it's sort of this like hazy, psychedelic rabbit hole of a movie that doesn't necessarily have this great conclusion. It just gives you this, this person's life. And as long as you're accepting of that, structure of the movie, it becomes a really interesting film to watch. And Nicolas Cage, this is one of his good performances. And when he's good, he's kind of great. And the way he just because he's playing an insomniac, the fact that he's like going crazy once in a while makes so much sense, and that makes the whole performance just it's great, poetic, moi, and all of that. And what else can I say? I'm not really sure. Everybody's great in this movie. It's really dark, violent, trippy, punk rock. This music is used really well, and it's very contemplative of the character, and what he's going through. There's a lot of like really great religious imagery that's not shoehorned in, because the whole plot is clearly just like a huge anecdote about being basically a human form of a heavenly angelic savior. So yeah, if you've never seen this movie, check it out. It's pretty good.
因为生活呀，不光是你去做什么，更是你如何去做。
Alright, I actually had to take a break because my voice was just going away and my brain was not working. But we're back. I believe this is the top 15 now? I think? Maybe? Yes, it is. The Farewell. one of the more newer movies that I saw during the trip, and I gotta say, it got to me on a very personal level. Now I'm not Chinese. I'm not. I'm Korean. But there's a lot of similarities when it comes to certain aspects of East Asian traditions and culture. And there are like the smallest things in this movie just resonated with me on a very personal level. The small, like the thing, like the scene where the grandmother sees Awkwafina's character for the first time in a very long time, and the first thing that she comments on is her weight. Like things like that just made me relate to this film so much more. And I think another aspect is the fact that my grandmother is kind of going through some tough times, not health-wise, but more so emotionally. So, like, watching that last scene where the grandmother is saying goodbye and just, like, crying her eyes out, it tore me apart. And I wasn't crying myself, but I was just sitting there going, God, this movie, it's a lot. And because it's so mute, a lot of the colors are very muted at times. So whenever a character, like, really emotes, and whenever a character really gets honest with the audience and with the other characters, it becomes this moment where you have to focus in on it. And everybody's just being genuine. Nobody's being melodramatic. I need to sneeze right now. Hold on. God damn it. And I don't know. It's a good family drama that doesn't push this idea of everybody needs to be prepared for the emotional climax, because I feel like a lot of films that deal with a person who's sick and who's dying, they always force that structure, like, oh, it's gonna happen, you're gonna cry at the end, it's gonna happen, that scene's gonna happen. And with this movie, it's all about how we need to kind of like push through it, but also how hard that is. And those human themes just make this movie stand out compared to all the other, like, cancer movies that we've seen, you know. And I don't know, it's really late. On with the next movie. It's good, it's great, you've probably already seen it. It was a big hit all over the world where it was seen. Next movie, god damn it. Night of the Demon was a complete surprise to me, because all I knew about the film were it was the one thing. I only knew about what the demon looked like, because I had like I was going through some clips of like classic movies on the internet, and I saw Night of the Demon, or Curse of the Demon if you want to be pedantic. I don't know what it's called. Like, apparently it's different. It's a different copy. It's a different edit. Like, it was a U.S. release, a UK release. I don't give a shit. And I was just going through some like classic movie clips, and I saw the demon. And I thought, wow, that looks really cheesy. It looks so silly. And that was my preconception of the movie going in. So I thought it was gonna be like one of those so bad it's good movies. And I was really surprised, because the only time you actually see the demon is in the beginning and the end. And admittedly, it does look kind of silly, but the rest of the movie is this really somber, gothic, sort of like existentially terrifying movie about trying to convince yourself that you're not gonna die, or also that if you are gonna die, there's a way to stop it, and you need to try to find it right now. It's this constantly nerve-wracking movie where the main character is just trying not to die, and he's trying to convince the person that might be killing him right now through connections with the demon or whatever. And every single moment, it's just this great puzzle piece of a film. I was surprised at how, like, atmosphere heavy it is, how, like, progressively, like, interesting the plot becomes, and how it, like, slowly reveals itself. the acting's all really good. I think the main guy is just like a generic main guy, but everybody else is really amazing. Especially the guy who's like the Satanist or whatever. Like he has so much personality in the way he talks and just the way he just stands and the way he just moves his eyebrows and going, "Huh, you think you know everything that's going on around here?" It was a much better film than I thought it was going to be, and I would gladly see it again. I don't know, all of it. And I think a lot of it comes down to how sort of dark the movie is. Not only in the way it's shot, the lighting really does make everybody stand out like it's some like really horrifying theater play. But there are also moments where they talk about psychology and how it affects people, and they talk about death a lot. And it's sort of this existential movie, and I was not expecting that. I think I'm repeating myself at this point. This movie's really good. Just go and see it. Like, ignore how cheesy the demon looks, because that's just the way it is what it is. The rest of the movie is absolutely amazing. It's a complete masterpiece, in my opinion. So I'm not really sure what I can really say about this movie because I'm a fan of the Czech New Wave. I've already talked about how much I love Valerie and her Week of Wonders. And Daisies is probably the biggest movie and the most famous movie from that whole movement. And it's just this really chaotic, almost juvenile film about, being women, being an adult in the world and trying to survive. There are watching it again, I realize there's like a lot of commentary on how women aren't seen that much in society and how they feel like they just need to have to sort of put on this facade in order to solicit people to do what they want to do, or to get what they need, or to get what they want. There's a lot of like commentary. I feel like the characters in the movie represent something that women, they really don't want to be that way, but they kind of feel like they need to be that way. And then you have all that chaotic imagery, the color schemes, the way they just, the music is actually really good because the music plays into that juvenile theme that the movie's trying to go for. And the ending is pretty cynical, but it works because the rest of the movie is really cynical. And you don't mind the cynicism because it's such an anarchistic film that you're just enjoying the rush of the imagery and the editing and just how weird it is, but also how funny it can be. I think I summarized the movie pretty well, actually. So yeah, Daisies, it's pretty good. I should like think of better endings for these segments. Oh, it's good. Like, that's clearly not enough, is it? I have a weird relationship with Buster Keaton movies. Every time I see one, I just kind of start off thinking, I'm probably not really going to enjoy this. And I think it's because Buster Keaton's appeal is much more subtle than Charlie Chaplin's, who's obviously the reigning king when it comes to like the image of the silent era, at least the comedies. And with Charlie Chaplin, the appeal is very apparent. You get it right off the bat, if you enjoy it at least. But with Buster Keaton, you kind of need to appreciate the physical humor, the fact that he's like going towards all these lengths. I'm not even sure if that's the right phrase. To really just bring this physical humor to life, his stunts and all that, and his like stone face and how that applies to the comedy idea of how not reacting to pain is funnier. Like all that, it's not as easy to sort of digest compared to Chaplin's little whimsical little tramp who represents the corruption of society or whatever. But then you watch a Buster Keaton movie and you're like, this is great. This is amazing. This is so impressive, and it's actually funny. And that was the same that's the thing that happened to me when I watched The General, when I watched Steamboat Willie Jr., when I watched Steamboat Willie, when I saw Sherlock Jr., and Our Hospitality. It's, once again, it's an incredible film, and I think it's incredible not only because of why Buster Keaton is great. Most of the reasons why a Buster Keaton movie is great is why Buster Keaton himself is great. But another reason why I really like this movie is how they kind of bookend the film. They bookend the movie with this certain saying or whatever, and I can't remember exactly what the saying was, but it's a nice poetic bookend to make a certain character in the movie who might have seemed like a really unlikable character. He suddenly becomes such a human being by the end, and you just realize, wow, that was a really good idea to show that plaque with that saying in the beginning and the end. Suddenly this character becomes so much more than just this evil guy, this antagonist. And it still remains this really dark sense of humor when it comes to like almost defying death at times. Yeah, it just makes me realize how great Buster Keaton is, and I'm just looking forward to more of his movies. Yep. And I think I also enjoyed it a lot because I saw it at like this morning's screening, and there were like a lot of kids there. A lot of parents brought their kids, and it was just this great atmosphere. The kids were really enjoying it, and it just made me feel good. That's the kind of experiences that I want.
Max mad. Because when Max gets mad, he gets even. American International presents Mad Max, the maximum force of the future.
Alright, hot take time. I think the first Mad Max movie is still the best Mad Max movie, right alongside Fury Road. I would arguably say that Fury Road is the best one, but amongst the first three movies, I still think the first one's the best, even though it's probably the most different one compared to the other three. And I'll honestly say it, the first time I saw the first Mad Max movie, I didn't really understand what was so great about it, but back then, I didn't really get into that. I didn't really enjoy campy movies, and I didn't really enjoy films that were campy intentionally, and this movie definitely has a lot of that, but it also, I think it's the best one because it's the most emotionally affecting. Like with the other films, I don't really have that, they don't have this huge emotional consequence compared to the other ones. But with this, I just, obviously it's the darkest one, like the bike gang kill his wife and child. That's a lot. So when that happens right off the bat, you're emotionally invested in it. And I think because of the griminess of the film, because of how like the apocalypse is clearly happening, but it's just about to happen, and that sense of dread sort of pervades throughout the film. Because of that atmosphere, that emotional investment that you have towards Max, just it becomes stronger. And those, like, the sky's always kind of gray. Everybody's kind of crazy and violent. And that atmosphere creates this tension that's much more authentic and realistic than the other ones. And I was sitting there just going, wow, this is like a much better movie than I remember it to be. And I don't know, something about the film just got to me this time. I thought it was way better than the other ones. And by the end, I think it was the one that I was the most emotionally invested in. And I don't know. It's also the most Australian, so that just adds so much character to the film. So yeah, I think now we're getting into the top 10. So let's see what happens there. I already know, but you don't, so let's go. I'm so tired.
Here's the gorgeous, tantalizing Lady Eve. Now, watch her go into action. She has her eye on this handsome, wealthy, but terribly naive and inexperienced young man.
The The Lady Eve is one of those screwball comedies that I've always heard about, that everybody said it's the greatest fucking screwball comedy ever made. Oh, it's the best Henry Fonda movie. It's the best Barbara Stanwyck movie. It's one of the greatest movies of the 40s and of all time. Oh, it's so good. Everybody fucking hypes that shit up all the fucking time. And it lived up to it. It completely lived up to it. It is one of the best comedies that I've ever seen. It's so edgy. It is it is so good. And there's so many, again, with good comedies, whenever you try to talk about them, all you really want to do is just quote the damn thing over and over and over again. And that's all I really want to do here. Barbara Stanwyck in this movie is hilarious. The way she just walks in and is just such an she's so obvious about everything. She's just like, of course I'm here, of course I'm confident, and the way she just commands everything with her sense of obviousness. It's great. And Henry Fonda plays this goofy, sort of a bumbly guy. And I've never seen Henry Fonda play a bumbly person. He always plays such straightforward, strict, and serious people. So here, he's just like, oh, he's falling down, and he's kind of a nerd. And his contrast that with Barbara Stanwyck's absolutely confident, commanding presence. It's just perfect comedy. Like, there's that scene where Barbara Stanwyck's character is just like caressing Henry Fonda's character, and she's just like, I'm paraphrasing here, I might be totally wrong, but she says something like, oh, you creep behind me and you surprise me so well. And Henry Fonda just says, like a robber? And it's the stupidest thing to say, but she just goes with it. She's like, yeah, like a robber. And it's so funny, and it's, man, I don't know, like, I think it really is that contrast, and it's one of the best contrasts that I've seen. Like, obviously in films like Bringing Up Baby, Cary Grant plays a nerd, Katharine Hepburn kind of plays this kooky little, almost a pixie dream girl type of character. And that contrast is fine, but here, I think this contrast is much more realistic. I can see a Barbara Stanwyck type of person, I can see a Henry Fonda type person existing anywhere in the world, compared to like a Katharine Hepburn type of character or person in Bringing Up Baby. So, I think that aspect, and just how, like, Barbara Stanwyck's character just basically plays Henry Fonda's character like a toy. It's just so well written, it's so well acted, man. And I also, a bonus for the film for having, like, animated credit sequences. That's great. Always love that. Always a little bonus. Yeah, it's great. The hype is real. It's almost a perfect movie. I was not expecting anything for the Manchurian Candidate. I had no idea what this movie was about, and I just walked in, and I was shocked. I was really shocked. Well, first of all, with this era of Hollywood, this was when they were sort of slowly shedding away from that golden age era. They realized that movies can be bleak, that movies can have, like, sad endings, and they can genuinely go for, like, political commentary and or whatever. And this movie just goes all in. It is one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen. Like just the first sequence where they're like, I obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know the scene that I'm talking about. The scene where they're like, it starts off with them, like, being in this, like, garden place, and you think it's like just these old ladies talking to these soldiers. And then you slowly realize that they're, hypnotized, and that they're like actually, captured in this, like, communist party camp in North Korea or something, maybe China, I'm not really sure. And the way they edit that sequence is incredible. It's one of the best scenes that I've ever seen. And as the film goes on, it's emotionally relentless. It makes characters who were completely unlikable at first an absolutely, you know, breathtakingly empathetic character, and a sympathetic one as well, and it just holds nothing back. Like, every time something really dark and disturbing is about to happen, you're like, no, there's no way this film's going there. And then it does, and you're just like, wow, it just did that. And the ending, it's not a happy ending at all. It's so sad and depressing, and thinking of it's about war and the powers that, you know, control war, and what those powers can do to normal people and how it can affect lives. It's about politicians and how that can affect personal morals or whatever, and it can really destroy a person. And the film does not hold any bars. It's not romanticized at all. There's never a scene where you're like, oh, this is the light point. This is the moment where we can, like, take a break from all this drama. No, every scene is just it's so emotionally relentless. That's all I can really say. And it ends perfectly. It ends on such a bleak note, and it does not have any closing credits. It doesn't even have like the end card. It just goes straight to the logo, and it just ends. And it leaves you there, just sitting there going, I don't want to live. It's great. It's great. Everybody should see it. I have not seen the remake. I have no idea if it's any good, but after this one, I'm not sure if I even want to see the remake. But yeah, the Manchurian Candidate, the one of two movies where Frank Sinatra gives a great performance. So yeah, the other one, by the way, is The Man with the Golden Arm. Just saying.
There's never been anything like it before. If you've been waiting for something new, waiting for a film to shake you into the freaked-out, mind-blowing scene of right now, then come and see it, man, and find out why it's called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from 20th Century Fox.
When I first saw Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, I think I was sort of in a very self-serious type of phase when it comes to movie watching. I didn't really enjoy movies that were campy and silly in an intentional way. So when I watched this movie for the first time, I was like, this movie's stupid. Why is this part so silly? Why is this part so stupid? I prefer to watch The Seventh Seal and 8.5. I was definitely one of those people. But now I'm not. I can enjoy these movies now. And I saw this at a midnight screening. There were a lot of people there, and people were making fun of the film. They were, like, riffing it while it was happening, and everybody was laughing. And I think the atmosphere really helped, because I really love this movie now. It's so good. I'm so glad that I have, like, a Blu-ray copy of the Criterion Collection for that film. And oh man, the music is really good. I did not remember the music being this good. The song "Look On Down from the Bottom." That song is so good. It's such a banger. What other song is really? In the long run. That song's also really. I would love to have the soundtrack for this album. Oh, for this movie, not the album. The soundtrack for this movie. It might be really. It sounds great. And just the small scenes, like I'm just starting like to think of the movie, and I'm only thinking of quotes, and it's mostly with the scenes with Dolly Reed. I love, because I believe she's from the UK, but she's playing an American person in the movie, so she really over enunciates certain lines. So she says lines like, "I'll take $500,000, man," and then she'll say like, "Up yours, ratso," like things like that. It's just such a quotable movie. Like, "I'd like to strap you on sometime, boy." It's so good. And there are just some shots where it's clearly Russ Meyer knew what he was doing. That shot of his wife at the time, the wife who, you know, the actress who constantly just goes, like constantly shows her gigantic teeth. There's that scene with her at the beach, and she's like standing up like this, and you're like seeing her from below, and it's just this powerful scene. It's framed perfectly. She looks gigantic with the sky backdrop. And obviously, it's just filled with so much personality when it comes to how it portrays certain characters. I would say the only thing that has not aged well is how it talks about lesbians and just gay people in general. The way that last monologue where there, that voiceover guy saying, this character was going through this and that character was going through that. There's a point where they talk about the gay characters, and I think they said their evil did not create their relationship, but evil did come from their relationship or whatever. And you're just like, I'm not sure about that one. But outside of that one line, this movie's perfect. It does exactly what it needs to do, and it does it well. I wish I could see it again with like other friends. I wish I could see it with friends, because these were all strangers and I still had a good time. But I wish I could see it with a friend. That would be much better. I would probably love the movie way more if I did that. So yeah, it's great. Everybody knows it's great. I'm late to the train with this one as well. So yeah.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.
I was also really surprised when I realized I was putting this movie not only the top 10, but like what, at number 7? Yeah, over Beyond the Valley of Dolls, over The Lady Eve. And I guess I'm just being honest with myself. I really like this movie, and I'm not sure if I liked it more than Hereditary. I think it's definitely, at this point, they're sort of like on the same plane for me. But something about the movie, and it's been almost 3 months since I've seen the movie, so bear with me if I don't remember too much about the film. But not only is it silly just to the perfect point, like that random scene where they're just like, are we just gonna ignore that bear in the cage right over there? Like, it's that kind of silly where they mention something that's sort of odd, but they just sort of pass by it, and that nonchalantness sort of adds to the comedy. But what I really love about the movie is just how it just constantly builds up on this idea of, misery and dread and remorse about, the death of your loved ones, and how, as you go on, certain people might not be really willing to help you. They don't really care. And the only way you can really get away from all the tortures of your past is to engulf yourself into something else entirely, which might, explain her big flower outfit at the end, and let it all just burn away. And that the way it slowly sort of progressed to that ending, and when that ending hits you, and when the song the sun ain't gonna shine anymore by the Walker Brothers plays over the credits, you're just like, it's all this. There's so much emotional catharsis in that structure and in that ending, and that's very important, not only for me on a personal level, but also because for the main character, because it starts off on such a sad and depressing note, that this structure really just makes not only this character more fleshed out, but this whole movie more fleshed out. It seems more human to me. And of course, it's just entertaining. All the actors are great. Everybody's just doing a great job. I'm not really sure what I could add to that. Yeah, I really liked it way more than I thought I was gonna. So, there you go.
Juliet.
So here's the thing with Juliet and Spirits. This particular era of Fellini, I am not too familiar with. I have seen Satyricon. I've got my opinions on Satyricon, but my introduction to Juliet and Spirits, and I'm assuming a lot of people might have been introduced to just the existence of this movie through Annie Hall. You know, that scene where Alvy Singer and Annie Hall, they're waiting for a movie in line. And there's that guy in front of them going, oh, you know, all those movies like Juliet of the Spirits and Satyricon, they're so indulgent. They're such indulgent movies. That was how I was introduced to Juliet of the Spirits. That it's the indulgent Fellini movie. And I watched it, and that character can go fuck himself, because this is one of the most emotionally affecting Fellini films that I've ever seen. Right up there with La Dolce Vita and 8.5 and La Strada and all that. This is... And I think... I see a lot of my mom in Juliet in the movie. And my mom's sort of going through the same struggles that Juliet is going through in the existential struggle, this feeling of not knowing where she really belongs as a person, as a wife, as a woman. And I guess watching the whole film, I was just kind of like seeing my mom on screen, just trying to survive as a person, as a woman, as a human being, trying to find her place, trying to become more free, or maybe she doesn't even know what to do with the freedom. Maybe she's just so entangled in the structure that she created for herself, so she doesn't really know what to do if she even had a chance, even if she knew what to do, even if she knew the answers. And with that mindset, I was just watching this movie and I was thinking, this is really emotional and affecting, and it still has those like Fellini quirks. There's a lot of really dreamy, weird imagery that I really enjoy from him, that you can see from his other films as well. Well, obviously with Satyricon it becomes like much more expanded, but and I really like everybody's the actress who plays the main the tall actress who was also in La Dolce Vita. What was the name of the goddamn? I'm gonna look it up right away because I want to talk about her and I want to name her. Sandra Milo. She's just I would love to see some of her other films that are not Fellini movies. I want to see her act, because she's having so much fun in this movie, and like the way she's standing, like she knows what she's doing. That sounded kind of creepy and inappropriate, but you get what I'm saying. Like she's like Barbara Stanwyck. She knows that she's commanding presence here, and man, what more can I say? It was just very emotionally affecting. I was not expecting it to be as emotionally affecting as it was. I probably would have not liked the movie if I didn't have a mom. But yeah, it's great. And on to the top 5, and I'm so glad we're getting there because I am so fucking tired. I cannot do more of these, god damn it.
Aurore Clement, and introducing Hunter Carson.
Paris, Texas.
Is there something, I don't know, is there something I can do for you?
Paris, Texas.
Hold on. Got something for yo asses. Yep, there it is. There it is. Had to buy this damn thing because, well, this movie, I'm not even going to talk about the technicalities of the movie because we all know it's extremely well made, that we all know it's extremely well soundtracked. I just want to sort of focus in on how it's effective as sort of this human drama. I think it works because not only is it a funny movie, it's very funny at times, in a very wholesome way, but it's a film that constantly focuses in on this one character, played by Harry Dean Stanton, and it constantly unravels this character slowly and slowly and slowly until you really see almost everything inside of him. And I think after that structure of the film, you get to see him sort of try to find some sense of closure at the end with his wife in that scene at the booth. And that scene lasts a very long time, for a good reason. And it just, I don't know what I'm doing. It's really good. I was not I was not expecting it to be that good and that emotionally effective for me. It just felt like I was watching a person with so much guilt and so much personal anger towards himself, trying to cleanse all that away, and trying to sort of beg for forgiveness, not from others, but from himself. Like, basically, he's trying to push himself to become a better person. And, I guess, I know this sounds very self-indulgent and very almost delusional, but I was kind of seeing myself in that character. And it like, I was this close to crying. I was this close to crying. And I think it was much more effective because at the end, after he sort of finds some forgiveness, he also realizes that even though he's forgiven in a way, everything can't really be the same as it was. And you also learn about how it was back then through like this scene where he's like going through these films of how it was when he was with his wife, and you know how happy he was, but he knows he can't make that all happen again. And he's not even sure if he gets that back, if he can like maintain that. So he just lets it all go and walks away. It's just so well made. Yeah. The next movie I'm gonna talk about is so different from this movie, but yeah, it's great. Everybody should see it.
Wicked, Wicked, one of the most frightening films ever made.
Come in. It's not locked.
See the suspense thriller of the year, Wicked, Wicked.
Sorry, I had to take another break. So number 4 is Wicked, Wicked. And I know it's very different from Paris, Texas. Suddenly I'm like talking about how it emotionally resonated with me, this movie about remorse and salvation towards oneself. And now I'm talking about this weird Brian De Palma knockoff movie that's clearly trying to be that's clearly trying to be sort of a parody of Brian De Palma movies and Hitchcock movies in general, and like, you know, slasher films in general. It is not the most well-made movie. Like, it's trying to make fun of those two directors, and at the same time, it's not competently well-made. A lot of it is very silly. A lot of it is very unintentionally hilarious. But it was one of the best movie experiences that I've ever had because everybody in the audience was so into it that even I got into it. Like, it was one of the it was a movie that I like laughed the hardest, like, compared to any other comedy in the world. And I have no idea how to explain any more of it because it's just one of the it was the experience, not really the movie. I don't think I'll ever even see the movie again if I have to see it alone. I need someone that I know, or like a huge audience that like understands these kinds of movies and the charm of these films. I need to be with those types of people. But that whole experience just made me love the movie so much. It's one of the craziest movies ever made. And the way it's done, the way it's shot, the duo vision thing, it's such a stupid gimmick, but they actually utilize it to like make some of the settings feel bigger, or like to like give you some like visual jokes. It's pretty good at times. But most of all, it's just a hilarious movie. There's a scene. No, I'm not even. I don't even want to spoil this shit. It's so good. That's about it. By the way, the top 3 are extremely famous films that are considered to be some of the greatest movies ever made. They're not surprising at all. Just a heads up. Okay, good. So let's go to number 3.
The final thing I have to do. Then I'll be free of the past.
I don't know why, but the first time I saw Vertigo, even though I liked it, I didn't really love it. I didn't think it was like the greatest movie ever made. But and I don't know what happened between that time and seeing Vertigo for the second time this time in 70 millimeter on this huge screen. But I love this movie now. It's so good. And that's not surprising at all. It's the most twisted Hitchcock film. It's the most twisted film he's ever made, psychologically speaking. It's a film about this guy who's clearly... It's about obsession. It's about sexual obsession. It's about fetishism. It's about how you try to mold people into your own ideal that was sort of constructed from the past. And it's about how it all comes out. You start blaming people. You start pointing fingers, but really it's all just because of your own obsession. It's about voyeurism. It's about identity fraud. There's so much going on. And the ending is genuinely terrifying. James Stewart at the end of this movie is one of the scariest performances that I've ever seen. And I have no idea how I missed all of this. There's so much going on. There's so many themes that I cannot fully explain within this short amount of time. It's so substantial. It's such... Dude, why was I so stupid like 5 years ago? This movie's incredible. There's so many things to talk about. There's so many things to expand on. There's so many... Oh, man. Isn't... Fuck. I'll just go to the next movie. It's so good. It's so good, man. Jesus Christ.
Do you like the way I feel? I still can see blue velvet.
They were doing a restoration screening of Blue Velvet at the IFC Center, and I went with Sophie to see it because I knew she loved David Lynch, and I just wanted to see it on the big screen. I only seen it once, but I loved it even back then. So I thought this was just gonna be me sort of making sure that the movie's still great to me, making sure that it's still as good as I remember it to be, and it is. And I'm not sure what more I could say. It's been talked about so much, but I'm gonna talk about this theory that Sophie and I sort of made after realizing something while watching the movie. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you look at the movie closely, Jeffrey Beaumont, the character played by Kyle MacLachlan, he's wearing an earring on one side of his ear. Now, back in the day, and this was what Sophie told me, back in the day, wearing an earring, for men at least, it was sort of this subtle code for being gay. Obviously, we're more open-minded now. Anybody can wear an earring. But back then, that was sort of this idea. There's this idea of men wearing an earring, they're gay. That was the code. And it was when a man was wearing an earring, not only was a code for being gay, it was also called being friends with Dorothy. As in, Judy Garland, who played Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, which is a movie that David Lynch loves. And, obviously Judy Garland was this huge icon for the LGBTQ community back then. So that's the correlation between Dorothy, Judy Garland, and the earring. What's the name of Isabella Rossellini's character in the movie? Dorothy. Jeffrey Beaumont is friends with Dorothy. The earring and the actual relationship with the characters in the film. When we realized this, it kind of blew our minds, and I'm not sure if that was the intention, but it's such a not only is he wearing earrings, he's wearing an earring. He's just wearing one earring on one side of his ear. So, clearly it was intentional. So I'm not sure what he was trying to do there, but it's very interesting, at least to me. So yeah, Blue Velvet, it's still great. It's the number 2. But there was one movie that was also a revisit for me. And the first time I saw this number 1 film, I didn't really get it. It was too much. There's so much going on in the movie, the number one film. But the second time I saw it, everything came together, and here it is.
Maybe you even get close to the truth. Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway in a Robert Evans production of a Roman Polanski film, Chinatown.
Chinatown is a perfect movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It is one of the most jam-packed, almost confusing films. It's one of the most confusing movies that's ever been made. But once you understand the correlations of all the things that the film's throwing at you, and when you realize just how tightly written it is so impressive to watch. And not only does the acting sort of elevate all of that to a higher plane, not only does the music elevate all that to a higher plane, but I think the way it ends is also an indication of how Roman Polanski was sort of planning everything out. The ending is one of the most disturbing and bleakest endings that I've ever seen, mostly because of John Huston's performance at the end. When you see him taking away his daughter / granddaughter, as he's taking away, he has this expression on his face. It's very wide-eyed. He's just and he, in a very deep, growly voice, he's like, "Oh no!" And he's taking away the daughter, saying, "Come with me, child." And it's like watching, the goblin from under the bridge coming out and taking away your children. It's one of the most disturbing images that I've ever seen in movies, considering the context of the film. And then it just ends with everybody saying, "Forget it, man. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown." And you just end on that completely bleak and hopeless note. But also a very realistic note. It's a film about how no matter how much you fight for justice and for the right thing, money and power sort of corrupts everything and it just rules everything over. And for a film that's inspired by a period of movies that was very romanticized and that are very sort of unrealistic at times, it takes such a realistic approach and it completely deconstructs not only that genre but Hollywood movies in general. Suddenly they give you this very theatrical character in Jake, played by Jack Nicholson. He's this very charismatic person. He comes out, he makes jokes, he's good with the ladies, he's very proud of his job and whatever. But as the film slowly shows its real head, and the character slowly realizes that his charisma, his sense of commanding presence, it really doesn't mean anything when the world in itself is bleak, is corrupted, and is basically morally destroyed. And by the end, he's just left being hopeless. And you feel hopeless because you've been following him all this time. You had this sense of hope that everything will be okay. And then the movie's just like, no, that's not how the world works. The good guys don't win all the time. Sometimes, it's not even necessarily the bad guys win. It's the people with money who wins. And that's just the way it is. And watching this movie, it was huge. It left a huge impact on me after it ended. And I was just, every time I think about the film, I'm just reminded of how tight the script is. I'm reminded of how great the performances are. And I'm reminded of how it just shoots Hollywood romanticism right in the head. And it's basically the movie that's saying, this is the fucking 70s. The romantic golden age era is over. This is the American New Wave. We're not fucking around anymore. We are not fucking around anymore. And yeah, Chinatown was the best movie that I saw during my trip. I am very tired right now. It is almost 2 in the morning over here. I'm gonna edit this later. Hope you had a fun time watching all of this. I'm not sure if I had a fun time recording it. Bye.